Another YouTube video. Have you guys ever wondered how you're going to find your next 100% winner of a stock? Today we're going to be going over HyperGrowth. A couple of things: how to find HyperGrowth, what is HyperGrowth, and how to capture HyperGrowth profits. So I know I talk a lot about this on stream, but I want to have a quick video that you guys can look to as a reference if you ever get stuck. So this is how I make most of my money in the market off of these HyperGrowth stocks. So this might be like a phase series, but we're just going to kind of go in the quick analysis how to find a hypergrowth stock. And yes, if you guys did like this video, make sure you guys sub, leave a thumbs up. I do stream every morning 30 minutes before market open. So let's get started on what is the difference between a growth and a hypergrowth stock. So this is a hypergrowth stock. This is one of the charts. It's been consolidating for a bit, but I first want to talk about the difference. So when we're talking about a growth stock, we can talk about Amazon. Amazon gives solid growth year over year, and we can see this from the revenue. So this is just from quarters, just from the 2020, we can see that Amazon's growing about 30% a year. You see 27, we're looking right down here at the revenue. So what we're going to look at is the revenue. So about 37%, and Amazon goes up about 37% a year. So kind of pretty much how this is not necessarily a correlation, but how much revenue percent it's growing year over year is how much the stock usually puts in there too. When I'm analyzing this quick chart too, I like to look at the revenue. So Amazon's revenue is 113 billion, but the cost is 65 billion. So really our net income's only around 50 billion, and then after paying taxes, employees, it's only about 7. So I just wanted to, this profit margin or the cost of revenue is very important to keep a look on, and then cash on hand when we're looking at these companies. So Amazon has tons of cash on hand. We pretty much beat every quarter, so we can see that if we even go back to farther financials, but we're just looking at this that Amazon is a good growth stock. And what really is going to separate us between a growth stock and a hyper growth stock is going to be this revenue increase year over year. I just want to start out with a couple. So so Amazon. Let's even look at Apple. Apple is going to be a good growth stock, right? So these aren't dividend stocks; they're growing. I think they're growing very consistently, and they have a lot of growth. So lots of growth through Apple. We can see this, year over year, we're getting more revenue. If we go to Yahoo Finance, we can look at that as well. So wanted to, and I mean this. You probably want to look at yearly financials too. So we'll look more on the yearlies when we look, and that was just kind of a quick thing. Let's go into a couple growth stocks. So growth stock is, in my idea, some people say over 70%. I say over 100%. So we're going to take a look at Futu. So this is a Chinese name that's been beaten down recently. I want you guys to see the difference between a hypergrowth stock. So we're going to go to Futu stock, and we're just going to look at this first. So we always pay attention to the market cap, which is 14 billion, but let's go take a look. So if we're just looking at quarter growth, we're up almost 100% year over year. So 8 to 1.5. So this is super high growth. Look at this year over year quarter increase, 345%, 300. So we're growing very, very quick, and we're always beating our revenue. When I'm looking down at cost of revenue, this cost of revenue, to make $2 billion, it's only 275 million. So super, super good at making money, and we have a good cash on hand compared to the market cap. So that's just a quick run. Before I'm going to look at a hypergrowth stock, I want to make sure it has over 100% on all these revenues. Cash on hand looks good, their profit margin, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper into it. And this is if it passes the quick test, right? So we'll go to financials, and I want to go to annual. Okay. This is important. We want to look at, so total revenue is going to be big. So what I'm seeing here is we're seeing 100% increase this year, huge jump this year, huge jump this year. So we're seeing honestly over 60% revenue, about 100%. So this is a really, really good hyper growth stock. We go to the balance sheet. We want to see that our we have this really big jump from assets. We go 21 million to 71 million. So lots of asset, and then we can look into the cash flow. all this stuff. Can be in another video, but I just want to just scrape on the surface that total revenue is kind of what we're looking at. And let's see. Another thing that we can compare to too is let's go back to Futu, and then let's look at their market cap compared to their revenue. So our market cap is 14 billion, and then we're going to combine these. So our revenue is 1.5 billion, so 3.5. So about $5 billion of revenue compared to our market cap of 15 billion. So market cap off our revenue is very important too. It kind of gauges, it is the PE ratio. So for me on these hyper growth stocks, especially especially e-commerce stocks, a lot of these trade 10 times its revenue and its market cap. Some stocks trade even more. So if we look at something like Snap stock, Snap has a 125 billion market cap and only has 2.5 billion revenue. So it's also kind of important to look at that. So when I'm looking at these hypergrowth stocks, I'm going to show you guys a couple. So again, we're just looking back to these financials, and this is just a quick surface, but we want to make sure that we're growing a lot, and we can see that we are. Another name that we can look at is a stock called XP. It's one of my other favorite hypergrowth stocks. I have it down at 18. Hypergrowth has gotten a really big hit in 2021, so I know this graph looks a little off, but let's look at XP. This is another fantastic example of a hypergrowth stock. So let's go to XP stock. So we have a 7 billion market cap. We're going to look at these financials. So year over year, so since we are growing about 100% year over year, a little bit more. So super good hypergrowth. Our cost of revenue is a little expensive. You see that our net income isn't much, but we're always beating our earnings and EPS. So things like that. So this is just quick. Let's look at APPS, Digital Turbine. Actually, one of my favorite stocks. This is my favorite hypergrowth stock. Have lots of shares. If we go to APPS stock, let's pull. We have a 7 billion market cap. So I want to pull up. Have about $1 billion in revenue year over year. But look at this. We're growing, about 100% year over year. Actually, 200, a little bit more than that. So always beating our earnings, our EPS. If we can go to Yahoo Finance, we can look at all those other financial things. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of a quick idea how I find all of these hypergrowth stocks. This is how I make most of my plays. All I do is I see that they're growing year over year. They're not in debt. They're growing cash on hand, and these stocks are going to consistently go up. So I have a list compiled for you guys if you guys are curious. If you guys go to my Twitter, just televised, and then we'll scroll down, and we're gonna find. I have a list. I still need to update this, so give me a chance. I'm gonna look at doing this soon. But yeah, right here, if you go to my M1 Finance, here's a list of all these hypergrowth stocks. So you've been up 168% a year, so my is up. So besides BioCryst, all of these are really good growth stocks. So if you put any of these in, let's put up a stock so I just saw Tiger in there. A Tiger is another name beaten down by China, but let's go to Tiger stock. So for our hypergrowth, this is all we're checking out. All we really want to do. So we want to see year over year that we're growing a lot. We're growing over 100% year over year. So we're pretty much beating our EPS and revenue. So that's how I find my hypergrowths. With hypergrowths, just average in and every quarter just check and see if the earnings are good. That's all you have to do. I've taken APPS down from about $8 all the way up to 102. I've taken XP up. I've taken DMK. There's a lot of consistent names. So if you guys are looking out there, if you guys have a scanner or a screener, you can like put in EPS, like how much they're growing by year, and then sort that down. But even if we're gonna look at names like Roku's a hypergrowth stock, pretty much. It's kind of almost a hypergrowth stock. Let's take a look at this. I know. Let's see, revenue. Here we go. Up about 80% a year off of revenue. So there's lots of hypergrowth stocks out there, but I can do another video on in-depth. That's just kind of the surface in finding hypergrowth stocks. they present a lot of opportunity, and they grow really, really quick. They always outpace the market. So if you guys like this video, leave a thumbs up, a sub. I'm live every day. I hope you guys will find this a little bit interesting. That list is also on my Twitter, so you guys can start to kind of maybe get a feel if you're looking for these. But yeah, easiest way, and I also like to find market caps between 5 and 10 billion. That's the easiest range I found to make 4 or 5x time my money. So I hope you guys have a good one. I will post this later, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys next video. Goodbye.